Nearly half of software developers don't check AI generated code. Hi, I'm Scott.
And I'm Keith.
And this is Instant IT Intel. Keith, I understand a security breach story captured your imagination this week.
It certainly did, Scott. And it's a new report highlighted by IT Pro that underscores a hard truth for security teams. And that truth is that most breaches aren't the result of novel zero-day attacks. Instead, they're the consequence of preventable identity failures, emphasis on preventable. Now, the story written by Rory Bathgate reports that according to research from Palo Alto Networks Threat Intelligence Group, which is known as Unit 42, according to them, roughly 90% of analyzed incidents involved identity-related weaknesses. The team reviewed more than 750 security incidents across late 2024 and 2025, and the findings point squarely at credential abuse, poor access controls, and gaps in identity governance as the primary enablers of these breaches. In nearly 2/3 of cases, attackers didn't need to exploit a software vulnerability at all. Initial access instead was commonly coming through via compromised credentials, phishing, MFA bypass techniques, and session hijacking, Scott. So in other words, adversaries are walking through the front door. You know why? Because it's unlocked. The speed of compromise is also accelerating, making this even more urgent. In some cases, the time between initial access and data exfiltration was measured in just over an hour. All right, and in adding to that, AI-assisted tooling is helping attackers automate things like reconnaissance, right? Casing your network, privilege escalation, and lateral movement at a pace that leaves little to no margin for detection delays. You got to be right on top of it. Another recurring issue, according to the story, is overprivileged accounts and stale, outdated access rights. Once inside, attackers frequently leveraged excessive permissions, often called privilege escalation. They would use that to pivot across environments, particularly in the kind of complex and hybrid multi-cloud infrastructures where it is easier to hide because there's just so much going on. So for IT and security leaders, the message is clear, Scott. Identity is now the primary control plane. Strengthening MFA implementations, enforcing least privilege access, continuously auditing entitlements, and tightening monitoring around authentication events are no longer best practices. They are table stakes now. The majority of these breaches were not inevitable, Scott. They were enabled by gaps that organizations have the tools right now to close. The challenge currently then is operational discipline and visibility before attackers exploit the next overlooked identity weakness. Scott, what we are finding is that it's really about identity more and more. We're also seeing things like AI agents, which need to be monitored with identity tools and things too. So this is what you need to really be looking at in 2026. A real eye-opening article for me from IT Pro. And what did you find that really struck your fancy this week?
What you just talked about, that reminds me of, I've got some stuff with password managers that I need to tighten up. It's a good reminder to do that. Keith, what I'd like to talk about this week is a story that highlights the sort of house of mirrors that we're all sort of blundering through when it comes to AI these days. So this story comes from a Nicole Kobe story on IT Pro, and it's about Google's new automated review feature for code generated by its Gemini AI tool. So, Keith, you've probably heard that developers have been getting scolded lately for some recent surveys, like one that found that nearly half of software developers don't check AI-generated code. And why that's important is another study that found that AI-generated code is already the cause of 1 out of every 5 breaches. Now, leaving aside the issue of whether it's smart to expect people to catch mistakes in code made by AI, it's kind of like, driving a Tesla on FSD, being ready to jump in when the machine makes a potentially fatal mistake is one of the things that we humans are objectively worst at. But leaving that aside, here's where the Hall of Mirrors bit comes in. Google has released a feature that is using AI to check the AI generated code for security issues. So now we've got an AI run security review of AI generated code. The AI is watching the AI. As Kobe says in this story, adding another layer of verification and supervision could be critical in stopping disastrous flaws before they cause havoc. Of course, Keith, having been around this industry like you, it's not a panacea. A number of thorny problems come to mind. The tool doesn't evaluate upstream components. If the AI coding assistant suggests a package that doesn't exist or one that's already been infected with malware, you're just shipping those vulnerabilities. Another thing, I suspect some of the same blind spots that cause the AI to generate insecure code in the first place might be present in the modules designed for code review. Then you've got false confidence by organizations in the security of the double-checked code that might cause them to skimp on human code reviews. Finally, AI still generates code faster than developers can review the code. And right now, the AI-generated code isn't good enough to just pass along into the world. The same executive suite pressure that causes, organizations to employ AI coding is going to cause them to emphasize speed of release and underinvest on human reviews. So, Keith, those are the negatives. On balance, I view this news as a positive development, especially if Google continues to invest in and iterate this tool. Long-term, human review of every line of code is unrealistic. And frankly, it's counter to the promise of AI in the first place. Eventually, I'd imagine security pieces like this will be more central and integrated to every coding tool and not an add-on feature to an extension like this one.
So I agree with you, Scott, that this is the future. There's just too much code to check manually. But it does bring up the old phrase, who watches the watchers, right? In this case, who watches the people making the AI that is watching the code that is being generated? In other words, Scott, what I guess I'm saying is I'm not feeling the vibe, if you would, about all of this, since I just cannot resist my puns. That is what I'm going to leave you with.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Scott. That is Instant IT Intel for this week. We will see you next time.
See you.